Hey everyone, welcome back to Mental Training Thursdays. This week's topic is about controlling the controllables, but we wanted to answer a quick question first from last week's topic on motivation. So the question was, what if I'm still struggling with motivation, but I've already been giving myself time and or space to be kind to myself? Then what?
A great question, the then what. I think it is important to give yourself that self-compassion, right? The space of recognizing when maybe you aren't as motivated and taking care of yourself in that way. And then the then what is if you aren't feeling so motivated, which again is normal in this time, but just like anyone, we have responsibilities, right? So if you are working in the athletic department or you're an athlete, the job goes on, right? So trying to figure out ways to what we call behavioral activation. So that's the technical term. I like to think about it as like acting opposite. So if you're not really feeling up to exercising or getting an assignment done, really kind of thinking to yourself, okay, what's preventing me from doing this? And then trying to just, play that mind game with yourself of like, okay, if I spend 2 minutes doing this exercise, then I'll feel better. Or sometimes it's just about not even getting into that back and forth in your mind and just acknowledging that that's how you're feeling, and then deciding I'm going to do it, and just not engaging in that back and forth in the thought process. It's more about doing. And so there's the acting opposite concept when you're thinking about, like with schoolwork, for instance, or work assignments that you may have as an employee. I think, really breaking it down. So sometimes if there's an assignment or there's a task that you're working on that feels just so overwhelming, it can be helpful to set mini goals of, okay, I'm going to do 20 minutes working on this. And then before you know it, if you actually engage in those 10, 15, 20 minutes, you might just keep working and an hour's gone by and you've done way more on that one assignment or task that is on your to-do list. To-do lists are also helpful. I am somebody who likes to write down and keep track of that, and then crossing them off, for me, can be a good motivator to get it done. And then there's another concept called the 2-minute rule. So if there's something on your to-do list or an assignment that you're working on, like a small reflection for a class that could take you 2 minutes or less to actually do it, don't put it off. Do it in that moment, and then that can relieve some of that stress and actually increase your motivation to feel accomplished and keep going on different tasks. So those are a few strategies to help with the motivation.
So please send any additional questions that you have to mac.brown@colorado.edu, and we'll spend a minute or two talking about it next week when we resume. But this week, the topic, Talk About Timely, is about trying to find ways to control the controllables. So when we were planning our conversation today, we were really reflecting on how much has been going on in the world lately. The pandemic has caused a ton of uncertainty and change pretty abruptly. And then events in the past few months have only further confirmed that systems in our country are flawed regarding race and justice. And that can feel really big and overwhelming. And there are things that are in your control still to impact in a positive way. Sometimes in order to be able to identify what we do have control of, we might need to just take a step back from the external things that are going on and refocus and ground ourselves back internally before we take that next step forward. So going off of that, there's an exercise that we're going to teach you today called Soles of Your Feet. And this is an exercise that you can use when you're feeling overwhelmed with emotion, when you need something that is going to help you focus your attention away from everything that might be happening up here or everything that might be happening in here, and just give you a grounding landing spot to put your attention on, which is your feet. This is true for a few reasons as being helpful. The first being that it gets you as far away from your head as you possibly can while you're still in touch with your body. It's also allowing you to focus your attention to where your feet are touching the floor and the ground. And that experience of grounding from the earth can be really stabilizing for us. You can do this practice outside, especially now that we're getting into the nice warm weather. You can do this practice with your shoes off in the grass or in sand as another option for some kind of sensory experience. But ultimately, the goal of this is to be present in the moment. So that way you're being grounded in that moment. It's stabilizing. It's almost like coming home. So if you're able to do this exercise standing, please do so. There are versions that you can do of this sitting as well, depending on what your circumstances are. So to get started, if you feel comfortable, close your eyes so that you can minimize any other distractions that are around you and allow you to really settle into thinking about your feet. So to start, just feel the point of contact between the soles of your feet and the earth. There's a lot of sensation here. You might notice a feeling of pressure. You might notice some tingling in your feet. You might notice heat or coolness, depending. Just recognize that there's a lot of sensation in the soles of your feet right now. And this is also a really great moment for appreciation of how such a tiny surface, just the surface of your foot, can hold up the entire weight of our being. Isn't that super cool and amazing? You might also allow yourself to notice a feeling of gravity that's holding you to the earth and how stabilizing that is. Now, what I'd like you to do is gently move your body from side to side, just gentle. And as you're shifting subtly, you can feel it in the soles of your feet. You can shift from side to side, front to back, and just noticing how that changes the pressure points in your feet. There's a whole world of sensation that you can ground yourself in and stabilize yourself in. And now you can just come back to stillness. And if you're doing this version standing right now, very carefully and very slowly, I would invite you to try taking a very small step forward by just lifting the heel of your right foot, noticing the way that's shifting the sensations by that simple movement, what it feels like as your foot comes back in contact with the ground and the pressure of your body weight reconnecting with the earth. And you can just take one more small step like that, lifting, placing, landing. You can feel the intentionality of the movement. And again, the way it's changing those sensations in the rest of your body. And then just pause here in this last moment of stillness. Before we return back, just notice if there's one sensation in particular during this exercise that provided you with some further sense of grounding and stability. And that might be that pressure. It could be the hard or softness of the ground, whatever the experience was that made you feel steadfast. That's something that you can carry or revisit through the day as you need it. So just take one deep breath to kind of anchor yourself in this, to kind of consolidate everything from this practice. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Welcome back. So hopefully you were able to see with that exercise how it can take you from focusing on something that's external, which is likely out of your control, to something that's more internal. And even then, internally, if you're getting caught up here in your mind and thoughts that are unhelpful, perhaps, this is something that can take you outside of your mind, but still be grounded and centered inside your body. Just like roots are grounded in the earth, roots of the trees are grounded in the earth, so too can you be grounded in yourself by just engaging in an exercise like this. And by engaging in an exercise like this, if you then associate it with perhaps a breath, then that can also contribute to being more mindful, and the mindfulness training that we have continued throughout these series to then choose actions or little goals that can help you re-engage in your life in a way that you want to, or in your performance in a way that you want to. So speaking of your performance, this is also an exercise that athletes, you can do on the sidelines, or so if you're a football player, you're standing on the sidelines, you can do this standing. If you are in a sport where you are sitting on a bench, you can do this sitting. For those ski racers out there, you can do this inside your boots before your run. So there's different variations that you can do with this exercise to allow yourself to get focused and grounded before you perform, or even amidst a performance. So with that, we're going to wrap up for today. Next week's topic is happiness boosters. And for today, we're going to end with a quote. Incredible change happens in your life when you decide to take control of what you do have power over, instead of craving control of what you don't. So with that, we hope you join us next week, and we'll be discussing happiness boosters.